Some places announce themselves the moment you arrive. Others reveal themselves slowly, quietly, through the way things work rather than the way things look. There are cities built around spectacle, around noise, around the constant performance of ambition and energy. And then there are places built around something else entirely. Order. Not the kind of order that feels restrictive, not the kind that demands obedience or punishes deviation, but the kind that simply exists, that holds things in place without drawing attention to itself. This kind of order is often invisible. You don't notice it until you need it. And when you need it, you realize it was there all along, supporting everything, making everything else possible. There is a small country in Europe where this principle has shaped nearly everything about how finance operates. Luxembourg. It sits at the intersection of France, Germany, and Belgium. A nation smaller than many cities, just over 600,000 people. You could drive across it in under an hour. And yet, within this small space, trillions of euros are managed, administered, protected, not traded aggressively, not gambled on volatile markets, not deployed in search of spectacular returns, but held, structured, organized according to frameworks that have been refined over decades. This is not a place that competes on excitement. It does not try to impress with speed or scale or bold ambition. It competes on something quieter, structure. The word sounds almost bureaucratic, the kind of thing you might find in a legal document or an organizational chart. Something dry, something dull. But in finance, structure is never dull. Structure is everything. It determines how assets are held, how funds are organized, how risks are contained, how disputes are resolved, how capital moves across borders without friction or uncertainty. And Luxembourg has spent generations building structures that answer all of these questions clearly. Not dramatically, not impressively, clearly. This clarity is the product. This predictability is what investors pay for. Not the promise of extraordinary returns, but the assurance that the rules will be followed, that the framework will hold, that tomorrow will look very much like today. In a world of constant change, this kind of stability is rare, and rare things have value. Consider what happens when a large institution needs to manage capital across multiple jurisdictions. There are countless things that could go wrong. Legal conflicts between countries, regulatory gaps that create uncertainty, political instability that changes rules overnight, ambiguous jurisdiction that makes disputes impossible to resolve. Each of these introduces risk, not market risk, not the kind of risk that comes from prices moving against you. Structural risk, the risk that the framework itself might fail. Luxembourg exists to minimize this risk. Its legal frameworks are precise. Its regulatory environment is stable. Its institutions function consistently, year after year, without dramatic changes or unexpected shifts. This is not thrilling. It is not designed to be thrilling. It is designed to be reliable. And reliability. When you are managing billions of euros on behalf of pension funds and endowments and sovereign wealth, matters more than almost anything else. The fund industry here is vast. A significant portion of Europe's investment funds are domiciled in Luxembourg, not because this is where the investments are made, not because this is where the trading happens, but because this is where the structure is. Funds established here benefit from legal clarity, from established procedures, from regulatory frameworks that have been tested and refined through decades of use. When an investor puts money into a Luxembourg fund, they know what they are getting. They know how their assets are protected. They know what happens if something goes wrong. They know which courts have jurisdiction. They know which rules apply. This knowledge is worth a great deal. It is worth more than promises, more than projections, more than the hope of exceptional performance, because exceptional performance means nothing if the structure fails, if the assets cannot be recovered, if the legal framework collapses under pressure. Luxembourg sells the assurance that none of that will happen, and so far, that assurance has proven reliable. There is a particular kind of professionalism that emerges in places like this. It is calm, measured, precise. People here do not rush, not because they are slow or unambitious, but because rushing introduces errors, and errors undermine the very thing that makes this place valuable. Precision matters here. Getting the details right matters. Following the process exactly as it was designed to be followed matters. This creates a culture where patience is a professional virtue, where careful work is more respected than fast work, where the person who catches the small mistake before it becomes a large problem is more valued than the person who moves quickly past it. It is not exciting, but it is effective. And over time, this approach builds something that cannot be easily replicated. A reputation, an expectation, a trust that takes decades to establish and can be lost in a moment of carelessness. Luxembourg has built that trust slowly, deliberately, without fanfare, and it guards that trust carefully. The physical landscape reflects something of this character. Luxembourg City is clean, orderly. Green valleys cut through the urban landscape. Old fortifications stand alongside modern glass buildings. There is history here, but it does not overwhelm. It simply coexists with the present. The streets are calm, the pace is measured, there is no visible intensity, no sense of frantic activity or desperate competition. This is not to say the work is not serious. It is. Enormous sums move through these systems. Complex structures are designed and administered. Decisions with significant consequences are made every day. But the seriousness is not performed. It does not need to be loud to be real. The confidence here comes from process, from knowing that the structure will hold, that the rules will be followed, that the outcome will be what was expected. This is a different kind of confidence than you find in more aggressive financial centers. It is not the confidence of taking risks. It is the confidence of managing them, containing them, building frameworks around them so they cannot spread. Think about the kinds of capital that need this. Pension funds with obligations stretching decades into the future, endowments that must preserve wealth across generations, insurance reserves that must be available when claims are made, sovereign wealth accumulated for future generations not yet born. This is patient capital. Capital that cannot afford unnecessary risk. Capital that needs stability above all else. For capital like this, Luxembourg makes sense. Not because it promises excitement, but because it promises the opposite. Because it offers the assurance that tomorrow will be predictable, and the day after that, and the year after that. The work that makes this possible is largely invisible. Administrators process transactions, custodians hold assets, auditors verify compliance, lawyers draft documents, regulators review filings. None of this is dramatic. None of it makes headlines. None of it attracts attention from anyone outside the industry. But it works. Day after day, year after year, the machinery of structure, turning without interruption. There is something almost meditative about a system that functions this well. The value is not in what you see, it is in what you do not have to worry about. The risks that have been eliminated, the uncertainties that have been resolved, the questions that have already been answered. Structure, when it works well, becomes invisible. It becomes the background, the assumption, the thing you do not think about because it has already been taken care of. This is what Luxembourg has achieved. When an investor chooses to domicile a fund here, they are not just choosing a location. They are choosing a legal system, a regulatory environment, a set of expectations about how things will be handled. and those expectations are met consistently without surprise. This consistency is the product, not innovation, not excitement, not the thrill of new possibilities, just structure, clear and reliable and stable. The relationships that form here tend to be long-term. Clients do not come for a single transaction. They come for ongoing administration, for custodial services that span decades, for legal frameworks they will operate within for the life of a fund. This changes how business is conducted. Trust is built slowly. Reputations are earned through years of reliable service. Relationships form through demonstrated performance rather than promises. The network is tight, interconnected, based on track records that can be verified over time. And this too is structure, social structure, professional structure, the unwritten understandings about how things are done and who can be relied upon. It cannot be built quickly. It takes time, patience, consistent delivery on commitments. Luxembourg has had that time, and it has used it carefully. The European Union provides another layer. Luxembourg sits within the EU framework. Funds established here can be distributed across the entire single market. Recognized, passported. This means access to investors across 27 countries without needing separate approval in each one. But it also means operating within shared regulatory standards, harmonized rules, common frameworks. Luxembourg has positioned itself as a central node within this system, a place where EU financial regulations are implemented cleanly, efficiently, consistently, not fighting the rules, not seeking exceptions, just applying them well. This seems like a modest strategy, but it works because institutions want predictability. They want to know that structures established in Luxembourg will be recognized and respected throughout Europe. And they are, because Luxembourg has earned that trust over time. The future is always uncertain. Financial centers rise and fall. Regulatory environments shift. Political realities change. Luxembourg is not immune to any of this. It exists within a world that is always moving. But its response to uncertainty has always been the same. More structure, more clarity, more careful design. When challenges arise, the approach is not dramatic reaction. It is assessment, consultation, the building of new frameworks that address new realities while preserving what already works. This is slow, sometimes frustratingly slow, but it is consistent with everything else about how this place operates. Change happens, but it happens deliberately, carefully, in ways designed to maintain stability rather than disrupt it. And so the system continues. Funds are established, assets are held, transactions are processed, reports are filed. None of it remarkable, all of it necessary. The administrators arrive at their offices. The lawyers review their documents. The regulators examine their filings. The same work, done the same way, with the same care. Somewhere, in pension funds and endowments around the world, people who will never visit Luxembourg depend on this work without knowing it. Their retirement, their university's endowment, their country's reserves, held within structures built to be stable, managed by people who value precision over speed, process over personality, quiet, reliable, continuing. The old stone fortifications still stand in the city. They have stood for centuries, built carefully, maintained consistently. The financial structures are newer, but they were built with the same philosophy. Not to impress, not to excite, just to hold, and they do. Day after day, without announcement, without recognition, the work continues. The structures remain. Luxembourg does not need attention. It just needs to keep working. And it does.